What's up, good people? What's up, good people? This is your brother, your uncle, your favorite realtor's favorite realtor, Marvin, tuning in for the Friday live show. Super excited. I'm going to go ahead and relax myself a little bit. I don't really like going live very often because I don't get a chance to really polish it a certain kind of way. But you know what? That's what the game is all about. We gotta push past whatever self-limiting beliefs we have out there and just give the information to people. And my hope and my prayer for today's Friday Live is that you walk away with something actionable that you can add to your real estate practice. I am not your real estate coach, but I hope to help provide information to you that moves you in the right direction. And if you enjoy the content, as always, be sure to subscribe to the channel because we got more stuff like this coming down the pipeline, more lives. I've gotten a few requests, and I hope that it adds value to your business. So we're going to jump right in. Again, hit the like button as you're coming in, and if you're catching the replay, be sure to hit the like button. But I'm going to talk to you today about how to talk to anybody, and I mean anybody. For me, and I'll kind of walk through my credentials, my education background, what I've been able to do in this space. But having a conversation with individuals, especially if you are in the field of real estate, because that's what this channel is mainly about. We have to build relationships with other individuals because at the end of the day, if we don't find individuals that vibe with us, know, like, trust, they found us from YouTube, they found us at the grocery store, or they found us from a referral from someone else, then our business is going to truly suffer. So, my objective today is to help you push past whatever self limiting beliefs you have out there that has kept you from going ahead and doing what you got to do and getting more conversations had with other individuals. So a little bit about my background. My degree is in communications from the Texas Southern University, the best HBCU in the entire globe. And I got into this business specifically because there was a lot of synchronicity with my communications background. For me, I was deathly afraid of talking in front of individuals, believe it or not, but it was a muscle that I felt like I had to work. So, the best thing that I felt like I could do was to essentially trial by fire, if you will, and push through and actually go to school for communications because I was like, you know what? I have a problem. I'm not comfortable talking in front of people. Sometimes I'm not even comfortable in talking in front of this camera. But I said, you know what? The only way to get over it is to go through it. So I enrolled in the first class that had to do with communications at Texas Southern, and I had really been pushed by some really great professors during my time there that helped me learn how to command an audience, learn how to keep individuals' attention. And some of those strategies and tips I've used in the corporate world, and it has allowed me to make a whole lot of money. Let me just be honest, but I made a whole lot of money in a clean way, in a good way, by just helping other individuals solve problems, and again, creating relationships left and right with other individuals. So, what we're going to do is we're going to break this live down into a few different sections. My goal is to get you all out of here in under an hour, but we may go for a little bit longer. It's totally, depends on how everything works and vibes out. And again, if you are catching this on the replay and you have any questions about what I'm covering today, drop it in the comments of this video. If I get enough of the same question, I may go ahead and do a follow up live, or something to that effect. But we're going to jump right in. So the main thing uh, when I want to engage with someone, right, in some type of conversation, if I have a service or a business or something that I want to promote, or if I want to learn something from another individual that I'm meeting or at a conference or something like that. The first thing that I ask myself ultimately is, Marvin, what is your objective in this conversation? Am I looking to give information and pour into somebody, or as I mentioned, or am I looking to learn something, gain something from this individual or individuals that are in this place? And that is the objective that I go with. Either I am giving information or I am receiving information. So when I approach an individual, try to make sure that I have my thoughts very, very concise. Certain questions that I may have, for example, if I'm going to another real estate seminar or something like that, and I see other real estate agents that I know have been crushing it. Well, I personally want to know outside of the fluff, what are their systems? That's the objective that I'm wanting to gain. And so my approach to the individual, if it's another real estate agent, is for one, you want to make sure that you're leading with value. So I may say something to the effect of, "Hi, my name's Marvin. I have been watching the moves that you've been making on the real estate front. I follow you on social media, or I follow you on XYZ platform, however you have kept up with that individual. And I had a quick question, just wanting to you know learn exactly what's working for you right now, what's not working for you." One of the number one things you don't wanna say to an individual, in my personal opinion and my personal experience, is this word here: "Can I pick your brain?" That's 5 words. Take that out of your vocabulary if you are trying to engage with another individual and learn about them, and I'm gonna tell you why. Asking a person if you can pick their brain, right, without leading with some type of value, and I don't mean value in the sense of, "Hey, let's grab a coffee," or something like that. That tells me, as the individual, if someone were to approach me, for example, and say, "Hey, I want to pick your brain, Marvin. Can we grab a cup of coffee?" That tells me that in your eyes, any knowledge or any information that you want to get from me is only worth $3.99, or however much a cup of coffee at Starbucks is worth. And so for me, if a person tells me that they want to grab a cup of coffee, for example, for one, I'm a producing agent. I have several businesses. I'm an investor. I do a whole lot of a whole lot. So my time is very, very, very limited. And I'm not even on any kind of stratosphere like some of the other top people in any field. But what I do know is to take an hour to an hour and a half of my time to meet an individual over a cup of coffee that I make at home. It doesn't really move the needle for me personally, not enough for me to actually take that person up on their offer. But I'm not rude about it in any kind of way, but it's just something that I want you all watching this to make sure you take that word out of your vocabulary. Can I can I pick your brain, and can I grab a cup of coffee? Here's how you can flip that and actually lead with value. Hey, look, Mr. or Mrs. Individual, if you're talking to another real estate professional, for example, "Hey, look, I've seen a lot of what you do. You're crushing it in the real estate industry. If there is any area that you don't have enough time to focus on, that you need help on, here is my skill set, XYZ. You come up with whatever skill set you have that you believe may be a good fit for helping that individual solve their problems. If you're ever in need of help in XYZ areas, for example, if you're a brand new agent and you're running into a high performing agent and you really want to know how that agent became $1 million agent, for example, well, I would lead with, "Hey, listen, if you don't already have a team, if you need any clients, if you need me to show any houses to any clients, here are the areas of my city that I cover. I'd be more than happy to assist you when you have a client that you need help showing a home to, or listing a home, holding an open house." Now you have essentially given yourself an in to that individual. You've shown them that you know that their time is valuable, and you have led with value, aka, what am I going to do for you versus what am I expecting you to do for me? People don't have to give you anything in this world. And I think that it's important to realize when you're talking to other individuals, you have to realize that it's really about them and what you can or would like to do for them. You have to look at this thing as unselfishly as possible, because that is the only way you are really going to move in the relationship. Because if that individual, for example, is a high performer, they're getting hit up all the time with individuals asking to pick their brain, individuals asking them to grab a cup of coffee, but nobody's asking that individual, where are the areas in your business that you need help in, and here is how I can help you in that business. If you lead with value, I guarantee you, you're going to hear more. Yeah, let's schedule a time to talk, or yeah, let's meet up. than, oh yeah, let me get your business card. 'Cause let me tell you something. If a person is interested in talking to you, within the first 30 seconds, they'll ask you for your business card because you have not kept their attention long enough to be worth any more time. So they're asking for a business card that more than likely they're going to throw away. I'm just keeping it 100, as the kids say. So now let's talk through brevity versus lack of brevity. Brevity means essentially just being brief and being succinct and to the point when you are connecting with an individual to talk about whatever the case is. So I talked in the previous segment about, and if you're just jumping in, we're doing a live Friday. This is going to be a live podcast that I'm recording right now, running the solo dolo. So if you're getting value from this, hit the thumbs up button if you're watching it now, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up button if you're watching this on the replay. But let's talk about brevity and keeping things straight and to the point. When should you do that? When should you not? I believe if you have what's called an elevator pitch, where there's a very basic bullet points about yourself and your business, that if you only have 15 seconds to tell an individual, and which is why it's called an elevator pitch. So, in an elevator, for example, will you be able to convey enough of your business and information to pique the person's interest to look into you further, or reach out to you to get some business done? So for me, my elevator pitch is very, very straightforward, depending on who I'm talking to. My name is Marvin. I'm a real estate professional. You can find me on social media at Sold by Marvin. I'd love to talk with you about some of the great things that I'm doing for other clients, such as yourself, and how I can help you get to the finish line if you're looking to buy, and how I can help you sell your home for top dollar if you're looking to sell. Within 7 seconds, I've indicated who I am, where they can find me on social media, because a lot of us are on social media now. If you're not following me, please do at Sold by Marvin. And then I've explained, depending on what category they fit in, because I don't know this, depending on if it's an elevator pitch, for example, if they may be looking to buy or sell and buy, right? Because when you help an individual sell their home, they're going to need a place to live. So they're going to need your help buying their next home. So, regardless of where category they are in, I've explained my name. I've explained how a person can look me up on social media. And then I've explained how here's what I've done XYZ for buyers that I've worked with. And here's what I can do for sellers that I've worked with as far as helping them get top dollar within 7 seconds. So, what you have to do as an individual is, if brevity is all that you have, meaning that you don't have a lot of time to explain how you are going to provide value for that individual, you've got to sharpen your elevator pitch. And I would say keep it very much like mine, where I say my first and last name, how they can find me on social media, and then what I'm able to do for both buyers and sellers. Now, if you have longer than that, well, then you will take advantage of the category towards the end, depending on if you're talking to a potential client that could be interested in your services as it relates to real estate, right? So if I'm talking to an individual and they're like, "Oh yeah, my sister's looking to buy, or me and my wife are looking to buy a home in the next 6 months," that is your opportunity, for one, to quickly talk about what's going on in the market in a very vague manner, meaning that individuals that we talk to, your everyday Joe Schmo, buyer client, a seller client, and this is going to be very contrarian to probably what you've heard out there, but most individuals do not care about statistics as it relates to the market, because they don't really understand what that stuff means, or else more than likely they would not need you in the first place. Let's just be honest. So when it gets into market data, I don't tell a client, well, yeah, last week, the amount of inventory was down, 10%, or we have at the present time about 6 months worth of inventory right now. I don't get into all of that, not on the initial conversation. What I do specific to buyers is my conversation with them is, for one, to find out if they are interested in buying in the near future or further along. Two, if they're a buyer, how much have they already done on their own? So, have they already begun the pre-approval process? The way that I find that out without directly asking is, I say, Oh, you're interested in buying Mr. and Mrs. Client? That's awesome. Do you have a preferred lender that you're already working with at Bank of America or Truist or, so on and so forth? That's gonna tell you, first of all, if they have already, taken the steps to actually go get pre-approved for that home, right? But you've asked in a way that you're just, you know, really just you're just interested, you're having a conversation with them, but in the back of your mind, you're going through your checklist to see if this individual is someone that is a cold lead, a warm lead, or a white hot lead, right? And so the next thing that I would say if an individual tells me, well, I'm thinking about selling, but the market right now, Marvin, I've heard a lot about it, those opportunities when an individual tells me that, it's very important when you're having a conversation with individuals that you do more listening than talking. You want the individual that you're trying to either give information or get information from, you want them to do more of the talking than you because as an individual, when we're talking, it should always be a dialogue for the most part. But if it's going to be a monologue, let it be that person that you're trying to win as a client. Let them do most of the talking because people like to hear themselves talk, I've noticed. And in those situations, the fact that they like to hear themselves talk, they will tell you a lot of what you need to know in order to serve them at the highest level. So, for example, if it's an individual interested in selling, and they'll say, "Yeah, Marvin, I've thought about selling, but I don't know, man. I've been hearing a lot of stuff on the news." Well, my next question for them is, "Well, what have you heard? Talk to me. What are some of the things that you're hearing out there?" For one, it'll give you an opportunity to make sure that you're not repeating any of the same talking points that they've already heard, and if they do tell you some of the talking points that they've heard on whatever news channel, well, now you can lightly bring up stats to explain that, what they're watching on the news, which most news is national, may not specifically affect the local market that you all are in, right? So that's when I use that as an opportunity. If they tell me, for example, well, interest rates are crazy right now. I got my 2-3% Marvin. I don't really want to mess that up. I don't I don't know if I want to sell. Well, then I would want first of all, I want to find out what's the motivation to sell because you're thinking about selling. So what's the motivation to sell? If they look like an individual, if I see that it's a family, for example, well, the question may be, do you have kids going off to school? Are you getting ready to be an empty nester? What has you thinking about selling in the first place? They may say, well, my wife and I, we have thought about downsizing. The kiddos are going off to college, so we really don't need to all this house. From that point, I've gotten information that I can utilize to say, okay, their reason for selling is more so that they feel like they have too much house for the money right now. So they need to kind of figure out what's going to be the best use of the home that they're in right now. And then I use that as an opportunity to say, well, you know what? Depending on the type of home you're looking to potentially downgrade to or upgrade to, depending on the situation, there are a lot of incentives out there that sellers are offering that will help with the interest rate right now that we're dealing with right now. Oh, really? Tell me more. So then once I hear a person say, tell me more, now you know you got them, right? But you did the best job possible listening to get facts. That way, whatever jargon or whatever data you do spill out, it's relevant to what they have already presented as the problem that they're trying to get your help to overcome to see if it makes sense to sell. And so I'll kind of lightly talk about, let's say, interest rate buy down or certain seller concessions where they're offering to pay down, pay a certain amount towards lowering your interest rate as a buyer. And then from that conversation, I move them towards the end, which would be more of the call to action where I'm trying to get them booked on my personal calendar because I don't want to give them everything in that conversation and then they really, decide to go on and do something else. I want to give them just enough to keep them engaged to let them know, okay, they're dealing with someone who takes this very seriously and now I've invited them to have a further dialogue on a more intimate level, aka a Zoom, or me, showing up at their home, scheduling a time that works for them to do that. So I've taken one conversation, one starter conversation, And depending on where the energy went with it, it allowed me to flow that conversation again towards an ultimate end goal, and that is to uh, set up an appointment with that individual or walk them through the process if they're a buyer to get them connected with my preferred lender, for example, so that we can get the pre-approval process started. So that is what, for again, I've done this for so long, so it was very easy for me to kind of rattle that off. But for you, you may not be thinking, you might be brand new, so you may not know what to have a conversation about with the individual. So what I would tell you would be to just see where the conversation goes, have certain talking points in the back of your head if you're a buyer, if you're focused on buyers, where you ask them again, how far along, do you have a lender that you're working with? Make a lot of assumptive closes, if you will, and ask them, do they have a preferred lender that they're working with at Truist? Start rattling off bank names, and then they'll tell you, well, no, I hadn't really gotten the process started in that area. Well, what I do immediately is I say, well, if you believe you're ready to start, I'm more than happy to introduce you to my preferred lender, Mr. or Mrs. Potential client. And when would be a good time to schedule a Zoom call with you to kind of talk a little bit more about your needs? And then again, in the back of my mind, I know get my preferred lender on the line so that they can reach out to this individual, but also coordinate a secondary conversation to find out exactly what kind of home that they're looking for. So again, it really depends on the conversation and where it's going as it relates to brevity or not. If you are really having a really great back and forth banter with the individual, don't hesitate to let a little bit of your personality out if it's something that could add value to the conversation. So for me, for example, I am the king of dad jokes. I am definitely at that stage in life where I always say some corny stuff. I always embarrass our daughter, my wife, and I. And but for me, my humor has made me a whole lot of money. And what that has done for me is that it builds a level of trust because laughter is medicine, right? So if I can get that person chuckling, laughing, or whatever, and even not being afraid to make fun of myself and say, "Oh man, that was a terrible dad joke," that in and of itself starts to create more trust, and it will allow the person you're talking to let you in a little bit more. If you're able to make a person laugh, listen, the guys and girls listening, you will have a client for life, you will have a friend for life, and again it will help you be kind of overcome some of the nervousness that you personally feel, because when I'm nervous, I just tell a corny joke, and if I see them laughing, it makes me more comfortable. They're clearly getting more comfortable, and then we're able to move past whatever roadblock we had at the beginning, right? But then on top of that, I always like to make sure that the individual is maintaining eye contact with me and that I'm maintaining eye contact with them. Not in a weird, stalker kind of way, but I mean it in the sense of just like I'm talking to this camera right now, you perceive me as talking directly to you at this present time. But right now, I'm talking to my Canon camera. If you're interested in the kind of camera that I use, the link, the Amazon link is in the description below. But maintaining eye contact with you, which I believe I've done for the majority of this conversation, unless I'm looking at my notes here, that is what has kept you on this particular video. If you're listening to the podcast, just act like you see me on a camera. But that is what has kept you on this particular video for coming up on 20 minutes at this point, right? So it's the same way when you're talking with an individual to make sure that you're maintaining contact, eye contact. So, for example, if I'm talking to you right now, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm looking over here as I'm talking to you, or I'm looking down here as I'm talking to you, or I'm looking over here as I'm talking to you, or heaven forbid, please make sure you're not doing this. I'm looking at my phone as I'm talking to you. So I'm like, yeah, tell me a little bit. So you're interested in buying a home in a little bit. Okay. All right, cool. Da 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 da. What does that tell you listening to me talking right now? That tells me if I was on the other end of this conversation, right? And you're looking at your phone or you're looking away, either A, that I am not important enough to really engage in a real personal dialogue, B, I'm just an individual you're just trying to get through. So you're just kind of working a room, if you will, if you're at a seminar and you're just kind of just trying to make sure you're just trying to, cover as many people as possible, talk to as many people as possible. Or C, I'm not confident in the information that I'm sharing with you. So you want to make sure that if you're talking with an individual, even if they're staring you down and not giving you any kind of expression, and they're just straight up poker face, right? That your energy is still bubbly, that you're still smiling. Smiling is important, and that you are still confident in the information that you're giving, and that you're engaging with them the entire time, because you cannot break the gaze outside of it being a little weird if it's for too long, right? But you have to make sure that that person feels like you are the most important person in the world to them at that moment in the conversation and the information that you're sharing with them. So if you are engaging with them intently and the eye contact is maintained, great. But what do you do if they're not really paying attention to what you're saying, or you get that energy, right? Because they're not really engaging you. More than likely, it's not because what you're sharing with them is not important. They may have their insecurities that they're fighting through as they're talking to you, that's causing them to not really look like they're engaged in the conversation. And it's not you're not going to find out, especially not on the initial conversation. So what I try to do is, if I notice that a person is not really paying a lot of attention to what I'm saying, I may say something to the effect of, "Hey, if you want to, I know it's kind of busy. It's a lot going on in here right now. Do you want to schedule a time that we can talk in more detail so I can kind of tell you, it's just real noisy in here, Mr. or Mrs. Client. So, but I really want to make sure that I give you the helpful information, or whatever you want to kind of say at that moment, if it feels like they're not really engaged. For one, that way you don't make them any more uncomfortable than they may already be. And for two, it allows you to still create a commitment for follow up, maybe at a time where they're more comfortable. They may have been going through something, they may have gotten some bad news a few moments before meeting you or seeing you at this event. Or for two, they may just not have been in the right headspace to take the information that you're saying at that moment. So you need to wrap it up so that you can move on to the next person. But at least you didn't do it in a way that gave the impression that they were not comfortable, you were not important enough. That person was not important enough to you to really get what it was that you were trying, what you were trying to give, right? So that would be my suggestion, would be to look at the macro or the micro cues, if you will, depending on the conversation. But if you're seeing that person again smiling, laughing, listening intently, maybe even leaning in as you're talking, you've got someone that is as interested in what it is that you have to say, right? So the last thing I will tell you is to make sure you do your darndest to avoid jargon when you're talking with an individual. And what does that mean? I'm a real estate professional, right? Licensed in the state of Georgia, soon to be licensed in the state of South Carolina. As of this recording, I should be. When I'm talking about real estate, I don't bring up anything about riparian rights. I don't bring up anything about, I don't know, CMA, market analysis. I don't bring up anything about appraisals until we get to that point. For one, because majority of individuals don't know anything about these types of words. They don't know anything about loan to value. You may know a lot about loan to value, but I try to break things down in a more palatable way, meaning, what is an appraisal? Where an appraisal is an assessment of your home's value, which should match up to the price that we sell your home for or greater, which will show that we have a deal that's getting ready to get done. So, Mr. and Mrs. Client, yes, you put gold toilets in your home and you love those gold toilets, but that may not necessarily make your home's value what an appraiser is going to be looking for. Now, what I've done is I've broken down in a palatable way what an appraisal is, right? For another example, closing cost, for example. Okay, well, what are closing costs? Well, closing costs are a number of different calculations that are determined at the end, once you're getting ready to hand the keys over or receive the keys. that determines what you have to bring to the table as a buyer or what's going to come off of the cash that you're going to get as a seller once you've sold your home, right? So I make sure that when I'm having conversations with individuals, and even if they ask me, well, how's the market? I don't say the market is up year over year, 10% in X, Y, Z. I don't use those types of words. What I will say is that, you know what, the market, depending on where you're interested in living, there's some really great news and there's some really good data that I can dig into with you, on a one-on-one call. But overall, the market is good. Overall, the market is good. That's all I say. I don't get into, again, year over year. I don't get into any of that. Okay. Your everyday client does not care about specifics. They just want to know that you, as the professional who are looking out for their best interest, will give them the data that's relevant to them in a matter that's understandable to them. Right. So that is, and I did it in 30 minutes. I'm very, very proud of myself. That is a basic breakdown of how to talk to anyone specific to real estate, because that's what this channel is about. But although it's specific to real estate, you really can take a lot of these nuggets and apply it to any area of business, any area of life. Just to recap, make sure again that you have an intention in mind, whether it's to give information or to in a positive, palatable way, or to receive information from that individual, and make sure that you have your layout of the questions that you want to ask after you lead with value to that individual. So again, take the words, pick your brain out of your vocabulary. Do not use it anymore. Your uncle, your brother, your favorite realtor, Marvin, your favorite realtor's favorite realtor, Marvin, is telling you that is not the way to get what it is that you're trying to get from another individual. Saying you want to grab a cup of coffee is not the way to do it. Lead with value, lead with what you can do for them. If it's an individual that's at a place in business where you're trying to be, you need to lead with what you can do for them, and then at that point they will give you the end that you're looking for. If it's a client, as I mentioned, buyer, seller, your elevator pitch is very simple. Say your name, say how a person can find you, if it's a social media handle or a website, and then also indicate that you've done XYZ for buyers and your job is to help sell your sellers get top dollar for their home. Very simple, and you get it done in less than 7 seconds, right? So if you got value from today's Friday live stream, smash the like button. Hope you appreciate it. I've got more in the chamber. My goal is to do this every single Friday at 10 a.m or on the East Coast, 10 a.m. And I'm excited for you to follow the journey along and get better, get sharper, get faster in your real estate business. All right, till the next stream. Talk to you soon.